Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bad and the Worst, a podcast where we rate and review movie trilogies and decide which films live or would go nicely with some fava beans and a nice Chianti. Joining me today...
I'm James Gunn. I rubs the lotion on his skin or else it gets the hose again.
And I'm Luke Morgan. And alright, I'm rubbing it in. I'm rubbing it in the skin.
I get that reference.
He puts the Joe Dirt in the hole.
I've got to say, we've tried this intro 3 times, and that's the best one so far. So it's going to be one of those podcasts. Of course, we're doing the Anthony Hopkins Hannibal Trilogy. Boys, only one other time in this podcast history have I been like, why the hell haven't I watched this movie before now? And that was with The Godfather. But I've got to say, one of these movies takes that title
That's
again.
That's how you feel after Hannibal?
Wow, no, we'll get to it. I feel like that after one of these movies. I'd never watched any of these movies before, and I had a really good time with a couple of them. I really, really enjoyed my time. Makes me interested in seeing the TV series. I'm really glad I picked this trilogy. Boys, Conan, what's your experience with Hannibal?
So yeah, Silence of the Lambs has kind of been like a ghost, like a cannibalistic serial killer haunting my dreams. Because I remember when I was really young, my brother had a poster with that, with the death's head moth making the skull. That's that symbol, and it's a take on a picture, and they're actually humans. They're actually naked people. They're not. It's all really weird if you look into the detail. But anyway, that really famous picture that everyone knows. My brother had a poster of that. So, as long as I can remember, I knew that this film was a thing, and I knew that it was important. But I didn't see it until I was a teenager. Enjoyed it, wasn't blown away. But then really got into the series, loved the NBC show. And then hadn't seen the other two because, I don't know, I don't know if we're talking about, but there's actually 5 Hannibal films, technically. But I hadn't seen any of the others except Silence. And so rewatching that and watching the other two this time, Silence of the Lambs is a classic for a reason. Holy crap.
Yep.
And I'm really glad I've seen the other two. Watching Anthony Hopkins do his stuff is really good.
Luke?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I had a similar story with Conan, actually. My brother had the poster of of Silence of the Lambs and Red Dragon. It was that, Red Dragon, and the poster for Scarface. I just associate those with...
When does your brother get out of prison for killing all those people again?
2036. Can't wait. So I was kind of just scared of this imagery from a child and never watched any of these films before this week. I had 7 years ago now, I watched the Hannibal show. I'm not much into horror. I was like, oh god, I keep hearing about this Hannibal show, so I'll watch it because it's got Mads Mikkelsen in it and he's my boy. So I watched that, loved that show, creeped me out. I've never done a rewatch of it or anything like that, but always thought it was a really good show. And yeah, like you said, growing up, one of these films is definitely there's a reason it's so famous, it's such a good film, and it's a classic. One of these films I think is pretty bad. Another one I enjoyed more than I thought I would as well. But yeah, no, these films are great, and Anthony Hopkins is amazing as this character for most of these films.
The trilogy really lives and dies on him, right? If he was anything less, and the same goes for the series. If Mads Mikkelsen was anything less, Hannibal Lecter is totally the heart and soul. And so if you really need a good actor to bring this home, and Hopkins is probably the perfect one for this. He's kind of got that sort of frailty because he's a bit older and he's short and he's he's not physically imposing, but he's just got this
unassuming, but
but just the way he plays it and just his voice and his mannerisms and his diction, and you can feel the psychopathy in him, and it's perfect casting.
And I feel like, especially in Silence, there's just this tension the whole movie. Anytime he's around, or it's a scene, just building up to meeting him for the first time feels very tense. And then you feel like anytime, he's in a room, what's going to happen here?
Yeah.
I feel like that does kind of lose its thing as the movies go on, but we'll get into that. But I'm definitely keen to rewatch the Hannibal show after these movies and get more into the Hannibal universe. I'll play the Hannibal game and all that sort of stuff. We'll get into it. But
is he a similar character in the show? Because it surprised me. Like, he's almost Shakespearean, like, and then he just turns on a dime and he's like, eating dudes' faces. It's just
I don't remember it like that. I remember him as much more just this charming sort of
it's
like meticulous, calculated person. But I'd have to rewatch it again.
The timelines are weird because in this he's obviously much older, whereas in the show he's a lot younger. Like like Mads Mikkelsen probably in his 40s, and he definitely feels younger in the show. And yeah, it doesn't have that same sense. Like it does dabble in certain parts, but it doesn't have that same sense of like at one moment he's smiling and he's charming you, and the next one he's he butts through your throat sort of thing. He's got it's a different sort of like charisma and control, and the unsettling horror in the show is a lot different to this. It's a lot more of this sort of psychological just weirdness. There's a lot of weirdness in it. So they're two interesting interpretations of the character, which is good. I think it benefits from not having the exact same character trying to be replayed.
Yeah. I mean, often that's the worst way to do it, right? Just try and imitate what came before, and imitation's rarely as good as the original, right? Yeah. All right, should we get into some stats?
Yes. Stats.
Silence of the Lambs, $20 million budget, made $270 million worldwide, an 85 Metacritic score. Hannibal, $87 million budget, $350 million worldwide box office, 57 on Metacritic. Red Dragon, $78 million budget, $206 million worldwide box office, 60 Metacritic. A whole 3 points between Hannibal and Red Dragon.
I don't think that's accurate.
I don't agree with that either, but suppose we'll get there.
Okay. I want to know how this split goes.
Rotten Tomatoes goes 92% for Silence, I believe, and then 40% for Hannibal and 60% for Red Dragon.
Yeah, I feel like that's too steep. That's too steep.
I lean more on that side.
I think I don't know. You guys obviously hate Hannibal a lot more, but
yeah. Let's get into it. Silence of the Lambs. A young FBI cadet must receive the help of an incarcerated and manipulative cannibal killer to help catch another serial killer, a madman who skins his victims.
Yes.
What a great plot for a show. I mean, obviously it's based on a book that was very popular, but Hannibal, he's such an, as we've said, I mean, he's just such an interesting character. That first time you meet him, that he's what's the guy next to him in the cell next to him?
Miggs.
Miggs has that great line about being able to smell her genitals, and then Hannibal's really disarming, right? He's like, no, my sense of smell's not that strong, but I can smell your perfume. He's quite charming, and just, I don't know, but the creepiness, it's palpable.
It really is. Like Jonathan Demme as filmmaker, right? I don't know if I've seen any of his other stuff really, but
no, I was looking at him today, and I know nothing about what this guy has done other than this movie.
I think he did Philadelphia, which is another big one.
Yeah, okay.
And I think a lot of he was big, sort of like his filmography was predominantly in the 70s and 80s, up into the 90s. So I think he was sort of before our time a little bit, but. Like watching this movie, I'm like, man, I'm glad it won the big 5 Oscars, and I'm so glad he won Best Director, because just the way he captures tension, the way he captures just an unsettling sort of unease throughout everything. From the opening scene, right, from her running, it's just got some of those amazing scenes. Like she gets in the elevator, and she's like a solid 2 feet shorter than everyone. Yeah. She's in grey, they're all in red, they're all guys, she's one girl. I'm like, these tiny little moments like that just say so much. And it's really brilliant. See the walk up leading to Lecter, where you see the chair in the distance and she's walking past everybody. It's just this slow build, and then it reveals him there, Anthony Hopkins, watching with a bit of a smirk. It's like you could have done something, tried to go for really cheap creepy, or you could have gone for just too nice. But it's just this. It's the perfect blend of how psychopaths work. Like they charm you, but they would eat your face
And
if they
then
get
they
the
eat
chance.
you.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, Howard Shaw does the score for the film,
your
um,
boy.
from Lord of the Rings fame. Um, I think like that's the thing. The build up to meeting him, I thought was really well done. You have all these people. The guy who what's his name? The he's like the warden of that prison. The real
Chilton.
jerk dude. Yeah, Chilton. Yeah, who I was just like, is this Jim Carrey in a prosthetic mask? Like some of his mannerisms remind me of Jim Carrey. Don't know why, but he builds up this whole thing of like, oh, last time we let him out, like he bit the nurse's face off like within a second, and it just has this whole thing of building it up. Everyone else in that block is like insane and they're doing weird stuff, old MIGs.
They're
But
flinging bodily fluids at people.
bodily fluids everywhere like monkeys. But yeah, there's something about him where he's like like he reads it like a book, He's just like just from a smell and just like he can pick up, her past and all this sort of stuff, and it's super fascinating. And Jack Nicholson, like I said before, he's this unassuming figure when you first see him. He's just like, oh look, like there's my granddad. But like,
Anthony
oh no,
Hopkins, yeah.
granddad
Yep.
eats me. Like it's like he's a bit messed up, but yeah, no, it totally deserved the praise it got.
Yeah, and I think it's such a clever thing for a film to do, right? Like we see it all the time where movies have too many antagonists. It's kind of the big problem in a lot of superhero films now, where they have 3 or 4 enemies. But having Lecter as the second character and kind of like the main antagonist, but not actually having him as that, having Buffalo Bill as this like the
Yeah,
actual narrative antagonist, it's such a fascinating thing. And I thought it the first time I saw it and watching it again, I was really in awe of it. Like that's such a brilliant choice, and it works so well. And it makes like this movie runs for 2 hours, but it is so tight. It is such a like it doesn't feel like a second is wasted. It doesn't feel like there's ever any filler or anything sort of to stretch out. It's like no, they've actually trimmed down a 3 hour film almost to this. And by having sort of these moments with Buffalo Bill, watching him do it, and then having this other antagonistic relationship with Hannibal, it's ingenious. Just like having these 3 main characters, and it's one of those things. It's like we're talking about impersonation of things. It's so hard to do because most movies and shows don't do this, but when they do it right, it's amazing.
like that's the thing. It's so weird to think. I always sort of had this thing with this film that, oh well, Anthony Hopkins is like the antagonist. It's about catching the cannibal. Like it's all about this thing. I didn't even realize this whole time that like I knew so much stuff from this film from Joe Dirt and Buffalo Bill, Buffalo Bob from that. I was just like, oh my god, this character's in this. That's where all these references I've known from my childhood are from.
Yeah,
Everything makes much more sense now. But
Yeah. There was a run on The Simpsons where I think Mr. Burns was Hannibal Lecter for about 6 or 7 episodes. They did that a lot.
yeah,
They wheel him out on a trolley.
with that mask.
Yeah, with the mask on.
that's the thing. And like just even that, like the mask is like iconic, just him in the trolley with that mask on.
Yeah.
You can't get better horror imagery than that.
No.
Hannibal convinces Miggs to kill himself by biting on his tongue and choking on his own tongue.
Impressive.
It's such such a great thing because we don't see it, and like
No.
they do a good job with Hannibal, right? Where you see bits and pieces of him with Clarice, but you don't ever see enough of him to be like, oh, this is how he works. You just know that he's smart, and you see enough that he can catch her a bit. But then we hear it's like Miggs is dead because he's such an incredibly like smart guy that he can convince a man to kill
silver-tongued
himself.
devil, like just
And like and like that would be impossible to put on film and make believable. But it's so good just having it as this comment. And it's like, oh crap, okay. I've seen a bit of what he can do with Clarice, but this is the extent he can go. So it's just that great sort of show, don't tell. And in this way, it's kind of tell, don't show, but that actually shows more. Yeah, I don't know. I love it.
Yeah, you almost like it takes a while for it to sink in how. Like he almost doesn't feel like the antagonist for the first part of the movie. Like obviously he's not giving up all the information, but he's almost defensive of Clarice by, I mean obviously he kills this man Miggs, but
He's polite.
There's almost I don't know. He doesn't feel like a bad guy. And then there's those couple of scenes where he attacks the 2 guards. I think early on, like he pulls them through the. Like at the
Yeah,
that's when he makes
Wait, do
his
you remember when he
escape. Is that
escapes?
what
no, before the escape, he attacks 2 people, doesn't he? When they come into his cell. Anyway, there's just a couple of scenes where you see like just how truly violent and aggressive he is, and that's where it's like, oh holy shit, this guy like he's bad news, right? But before that, he's like so charming and so smart, the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just a really interesting antagonist, I guess. Yeah.
And having him as I see having him with Clarice, and he's like say he's sort of defense of her, where he's like, I hate impolite people.
Yep.
It becomes like a weird anti-hero in a way, where you kind of like that he's killing this psychopath, and it's that classic dilemma, right? Where like, I like seeing this incredibly charismatic dude do things that I know I can't do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's killing bad people, and he's just so suave that it's kind of exciting. But yeah, then you're like, oh no way, he eats faces, and he just attacks a nurse for no reason.
He wears faces.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
It's,
I really like the story of like when she goes into the whole story about like the slaughter of the lambs, you know, and he's like asking about like I almost expected him to be like, is there the silence of the lambs? So we're like, oh, there's the movie title. But we don't get that, luckily. But yeah, that whole story, but like the whole thing with him meeting the senator as well. Like when, you know, he's basically
Did you breastfeed your child?
Yeah,
Makes the nipples tough, doesn't it?
Gets weird. It just
There's a lot of this that weird stuff. He has that great tendency. He pisses people off, and then when they walk away, he's like yells out at them, and he's like, oh, "Okay, here's what you need to know." And
yeah,
it's like a petulant child, but it's like, but you're too smart, so I can't hate you.
He almost like he knows he's got this. He's so far above them, but he's got so much stuff that they need that he can like just piss them off to the point where they want to go away, and still bring them back in, draw them back with his information, with his smarts.
And that's the game he likes, right? It's all just a big game that's like a power trip. He enjoys just antagonizing. Something that I noticed as well, I think in this rewatch, is that adds to sort of the unease and the dread is like Demi does this really fascinating perspective, and where there's this constant, so many moments of people talking to the camera, right?
Yeah,
like they mention this a lot in the rewatchables, which I don't know, clarifies a lot, but they have those scenes where it's just Hopkins is talking straight at you, and then it cuts back and you see Clarice, and it's like she's talking at you, and so there's just this really great, this constant use of that, and like they do it a little bit later with Bill when he's got his night vision, but for the most part, it's from these characters, and you just sort of constantly feel the unease by seeing it through her eyes, right? Like she's talking to Hopkins, and we feel like we are also getting intimidated by him. It just does this phenomenal job. It's the same when she enters the room and we see her walking towards the chair. And so you are constantly feeling like you're her, you're this vulnerable woman in a man's world, a little out of your depth, but you want to get to the bottom of it. And for the most part, you can't do that. You can't look at the camera. That's rule number 1. But again, like this rule is broken to such incredible success. And it creates this feeling that you don't notice, but it's like, I don't know, it's a masterclass thing. Because it's so subtle, but it really adds to the dread of it all.
I mean, it definitely stands out. It's one of the first things I wrote down. Like, oh, they have Skyrim dialogue in this movie. Like, but it feels weird at first, but you're right. Like, it gets, I don't know. It feels like you're there in the room with the character and they're talking to you. And it's fascinating. It's a fascinating technique. I'm surprised we don't see more of it, honestly.
Yeah, and again, I guess it's the thing that if it's not handled perfectly.
Yeah.
And I was looking for it in the other 2 films, and there's a few moments in Red Dragon where Ratner tries to do it, but then he just can't help but sort of still put it over the shoulder, and I'm like, it loses all impact.
Yeah. And
you like, I don't know, there are a few moments where I'm like, I think he's trying to get the same effect.
It goes that Fallout 4 route.
Yeah, kind of. they change too much, just like the first stuff. And you got to commit to it.
What did you guys think of the breakout when he breaks out? I should have saw it coming. I didn't expect the face thing. I was just like, until like the last second, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, oh, and then just him pulling the little like the skin off. I'm just like, oh god, that's messed up.
We don't see enough face wearings anymore in media.
No.
Like back in the day, we used to have Leatherface wearing faces, and then we had
Face
this
Off.
guy. Face Off, exactly. We had the classics. Why does no one wear faces anymore? All right.
Well, Game of Thrones did it. They
Yeah,
were
but it was
very
lame.
accurate looking faces.
Yes, exactly. And then
They
that weird
became the
scene,
person.
when they're like, no, I want to see like people slicing skin off and wearing it like a suit. It's that whole scene, like that scene, the elevator thing. It's so good.
Yeah.
Holy crap!
Seeing that cop like strung up on the cell. Ugh.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh man, he's such bad news. Like this is like horrifyingly brutal. What is
He
that?
got a pen. He got a pen. And this is what happens. There's dudes dead everywhere, ripped apart, faces missing. Like it's just it's the whole thing with the elevator, I was like, oh, he's on top of the elevator. I was so fooled by it the whole time. I was just like, at the start, I was like, that's weird. That dude on the ground, I was like, that looks like Anthony Hopkins' hair. And I was like, but his face is all messed up. I just thought he's had all these little bite marks on his face. But yeah.
Yeah, that's what it goes for. He's got like, it looks like he's just been sliced, which he has.
Yeah.
And so you just, you're supposed to believe in the moment. Did you guys get taken aback by the violence, or were you expecting it to be as violent as this? Or because it's pretty shocking. This won Best Picture, like a film that's kind of horrifying and gory, right?
Like definitely that scene, I was like, holy crap! Like this is really not taking a turn, but like it's really dialed up this this character and this violence. Like it definitely took me aback a bit.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. These days, kind of
Look so desensitized to violence.
Desensitized. I don't know. I feel like I saw worse stuff in the Hannibal show. Maybe I don't know if I remember, but the stuff in that scared me. So this, and because my brother had this poster, I've been scared of this movie for 20 years. I was just like, oh, it wasn't so bad. But there's definitely scenes where it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty brutal. But nothing really shocked me or anything. But like, I guess if you look at it with Oscar nominees, it would probably be up there with, if not the most brutal. But I don't.
Yeah, I guess it just because I knew that it had won Best Picture, and just surprised me watching it again. I'm like, this movie is pretty horrifying. Like it's disturbing subject matter, and it's not like R-rated gore fest, but there are moments like this that are pretty intense. And like it always just wows me that I'm like, wow, people saw past this. This wasn't the end of like, nah, it's too gory, we can't have that. They because I don't expect it in a Best Picture winner, right? I expect it to be a bit safer. And to have these sort of moments, I'm like, kudos. Works really well.
That's the thing, like Buffalo Bill is just as creepy as well. I feel like the whole thing of just skinning and making this suit, it's just like every time like you get glimpses in his dungeon, it's just like, oh, this is messed up. And like when she's walking around, that dungeon is creepy, man. Like every room seems to get worse. It's like my nightmare of a place I've walked through. It's just like, oh man, look at this. And just like obviously he has the night vision goggles as well.
Really
but yeah, it's just creepy dungeon lair. And that woman in the bottom well doesn't shut up. I'm like, God, you're gonna give her away. Just shush. I understand. It's probably pretty scary scenario to be in. But
when she starts screaming though, she's like, "Don't leave me in here, you bitch!" to Clarice.
Yeah, she's
like,
really
just
starts.
Pick your words a bit better.
I love that she tried to get the dog down and she just threatened to kill the dog, and he's like freaking out. I was like, that's great. It's great.
Yeah.
Smart.
That's what you would want to do. It's smart.
Do what you can to survive.
How'd you feel about the tuck dance?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's definitely a moment. Like, I suppose it shows his instability. I don't know. It's kind of funny, I guess.
It's so good. It's such a great moment. It's so creepy. I've been listening to that song "Goodbye Horses" like on loop for the past couple of days. It's actually a really good song. And
have you also been dancing?
I'm thinking about transforming, but
do you say that stuff as well?
Let's get from the mirror.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those weird moments where it's really creepy and unsettling, but it kind of, again, it provides this entire insight into him, right? Like, this is where he's at. This is kind of the wacky stuff that's happening right now. Dude's going off the deep end. We'll see what happens. But it's just, I don't know, 3 minutes, but it's really effective. It doesn't, it's just a really good way of like not trying to show, he never has to talk to anyone and be like, oh, I feel like I'm losing it. Like we could compare it to Red Dragon, where there's a lot more like he kind of talks to himself, or he's trying to explain to you what's happening. He's like, this is why I'm transforming. Yeah. Whereas this is just like, no, this guy's going off the deep end, and look at him now. He's playing this music and he's doing this dance, and it's like, it's weird as shit.
So, obviously, with Buffalo Bill, this is kind of like a subject matter that this movie couldn't exist today. Like this character, at least,
potentially
wouldn't be villainized in this way.
I knew you'd bring this up.
No, but it's just it's because it is kind of like it's jarring to this whole thing that back then it was, you know, this really taboo thing that's like is very weird, and like, you know, they paint this thing as he's going through this thing, and obviously he takes it a lot further and he's skinning people, but you know, like for people these days, they don't need to skin people. It's like this movie can't exist today. But yeah, I don't know. Just it's interesting time capsule, but
yeah. They make a pretty good point, I think, of twice explaining quite clearly. It's like, it's not because, like, they use the word transvestite. It's like, it's not because of that. Yeah, like, no, that's not why he's doing it. Because Clarice even says like it's like, no, they've proven that is in no way related to insanity or something. And then later on, Lecter says again, he's like, he's not doing this for that reason. He's doing it because I can't remember what he says, but they make it pretty clear. It's like, that's not why. This is his misguided. Like he's insane and he's going crazy, and this is how he thinks he manifests.
He fixes it.
Yeah. But for sure, it'll be tumultuous to like navigate that now. There's much more politics to it.
It'd be so much harder, yeah.
That's all I mean. Like, I don't feel like this movie does necessarily a bad job where it was jarring to be like, oh, that's bad that they're doing it this way or talking about it this way. I feel like they, you know, navigated it quite well. But
yeah.
Yeah,
you're right. And I guess I wonder if that's why we haven't seen a remake yet. Like we were talking about before, we've seen Clarice has come out, but that's dealing intentionally with Clarice before this event. So I do wonder if part of it's like, it's too tricky to deal with the Buffalo Bill thing now, and they're just like, let's not bother.
It could.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you just rewrite the character. It's weird though. Like if you make him part of any minority, he's gonna make them look bad. Like, I don't know. Can you only make him a cis white male? Is that the only way to do it that's okay now? Don't know. We're not here to litigate these things, I suppose. It's hard. It's a hard thing to navigate.
Yeah.
How did you guys feel about Jodie Foster's performance? Obviously, she won Best Actress for this.
So she did. Okay.
I think she did a great job of like coming across as a headstrong cadet who's, you know, really trying to prove herself, but obviously is incredibly naive as well, and you know, a little bit in over her head, going to Buffalo Bill's house and just letting herself in, and
but not calling for backup, and just
could have handled that a bit better.
Yeah.
I think she's great. Like the whole thing about this as well, like they're dealing with the whole thing of her being a woman in this world. Like I feel like that's this constant thing throughout. Like she gets stares from people, gets comments from people. There's the awkward scene in the funeral home, just like a room full of douchebags, like just like, oh, who's this woman here? But she's very headstrong, especially for when this film came out. Like, you know, she's a great, strong female lead in the film. Yeah, has flaws and everything like that, but like we'll get into it with the next one. But why did they recast her? Like, it bothers me so much. But
apparently there was a scheduling conflict, but maybe she knew it was just
do it then. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it is weird. It is weird to follow up an Academy Award winning performance with what we got. But
they recast everyone else as well, so it's almost like
it's
like this. It's this weird surreal interpretation. I think Jodie Foster is the perfect choice for this role. Her as an actress, she's always had this like. She's not conventionally sort of like supermodel gorgeous. No. And she's she's not ugly by any means, but she's always had this kind of like earthy, almost like Midwest country girl vibe to her, where it's like she's very plain. She's just very ordinary looking. She could easily be a girl next door, but there's something just about her. And so having her as Clarice is fascinating because it's not like I don't know who else was a huge actress in the 90s.
So I heard the suggestion today of Michelle Pfeiffer, who is, you know, one of the most gorgeous women alive at the time. Like, I don't know. I think that's an interesting choice. But yeah, you're right. To play a girl who's come from the country as part of her character, with a bad
and
accent.
I think just having someone like Michelle Pfeiffer, having someone who's just really attractive, it kind of creates a different dynamic where it's like, well, yeah, that's why everyone's looking at her because she's really hot. And
Yep.
then it adds that whole subtext of, oh, well, she's fighting against to prove that she's not just a beautiful woman. But by having her, I think by having Jodie Foster, it's like, it's not that she's a beautiful woman, it's just that she's a woman. And for me, like when I watch them, like it's almost like she's actually not remarkable at all. But because of that, it just adds to this sort of level of the misogyny and the disregard they have for her because they're like, it's a woman, period. It's not that she's super hot and we're all trying to bang her. It's just the gaze, like the male gaze in this film isn't because she's sexy, it's because she's different. And that I think is so much more interesting than like, oh, look, she's a supermodel, so we're all going to look at her. I'm like, no, she's really not. You shouldn't look at her for any reason except the fact that she's a woman, and that's kind of why everyone's caught off guard. And her accent is perfect. Like her weird, hokey, not quite country, not quite city. I love it.
That's the thing. Like the scene with like the stairs and everything like that. I never got the impression that it's like they're like, Hoga or anything like that. It's sort of like a disdain. Like they're looking at her like you don't belong here. Like what
This
is
is a man's world, yeah.
Yeah, which paints that message a lot stronger for what she was facing.
Just we spoke about it, but that scene as she's making her way to her the head guy's office, and she's just so much smaller and shorter than everyone. Like she's a tiny person compared to those guys.
Yeah,
and straight away, okay, if she ever gets in a physical altercation, she's probably screwed, right?
Yeah,
and so that just adds that tension to okay, this could go bad. And
the thing, Hannibal's short, and he's still taller than he still sort of is.
Yeah. They do a great job with both of them. Like neither of them are conventional in their roles, but they're all it's always the ones you least suspect.
Yeah. They didn't recast Barney.
No, The Wire alumni. He's the one constant.
A few The Wire alumni.
Valchek shows up. Oh,
yeah,
loved it.
Like Conan loves these films.
As soon as I saw that, I was just like, quite screaming to myself, like, "Holy crap!"
Is there anything else we want to add about Silence of the Lambs?
I like the line, "I'm having an old friend for dinner."
It's a good way to end the movie. He has a few good final lines. We'll get to them as well, I suppose. But
yeah.
All right, Hannibal, 2001. Living in exile, Dr. Hannibal Lecter tries to reconnect with now disgraced agent Clarice Starling and finds himself a target for revenge from a powerful victim.
Gary Oldman is dope as Mason Verger. Holy crap.
Gary Oldman is dope at everything he does.
Gary Oldman's amazing. Mason Verger is creepy AF, man.
So good.
Yeah. Pigs are creepy AF. Like I remember from the Hannibal show, like just being like, oh, I just don't like pigs anymore. Like at all. Like they creep me out, this whole thing. But
I remember like the Mason Verger in this movie is a lot more deformed than in the show, and I like that. I think it's great. I actually think that's the one thing the show didn't do as good, is that they made him like a lot more ordinary looking, whereas in this he's a fucking mess.
He's barely recognizable. Like he's not recognizable as Gary Oldman, in my opinion. No. Like I had to look up who it was because I totally had no idea.
Yeah,
you gotta like. I just love actors who. It's like when Colin Farrell was the Penguin. It's like you can't tell at all, but he brings Mason Verger could be just the most comical nonsense, but
even when they like show him when he was younger, like before it, you still don't even you're not like, oh, Gary Oldman. Like it's these like hazy like sort of things of him. Like it's
because Ridley Scott uses that terrible motion blurring.
Yeah.
Why is that in this movie?
Ridley Scott. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like he should do. I don't know. He's a well-respected actor, but I did not like this movie. This
movie has one of the biggest creative teams behind it. So it's got Ridley Scott directing, Steve Zalen as the main writer. Now he's written a bunch of good stuff. David Mamet, the famous playwright, he's the other co-writer. So they've got like these two huge dudes. Then you've got Hans Zimmer doing the music.
Which is great. I do like Hans Zimmer's track in this. Yeah.
You've got a cast that's like freaking out the wazoo. Hopkins, Julianne Moore, Gary Oldman Rayleigh, got a Mathis from Casino Royale. Yeah. How did it go so wrong? What happened?
Dude, I still like her being recast. I feel like just starts the movie with a sour taste because
It really does.
especially when you watch them. Like I can't imagine watching this. What it was like 10 years, wasn't it? After
It
Silence of
was
the Lambs.
10 years
Yeah.
direct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like just to be like, and I don't know. I never get the same thing with Julianne Moore as I did with we just
Jodie Foster.
yeah Jodie Foster. Like the chemistry isn't there between her and
No.
Hannibal. Like to have such two performances in the first film, and then to go to this with a completely different character, it just automatically takes the winds out of sails for the movie. And at the very start, I was just like, and then like 5 minutes in, we have this big shootout scene. And a
Yep.
person with an Uzi with a baby strapped to them in slow motion shooting an Uzi. And I was just like, oh no. I was like, this is where it all went wrong. But
I mean, there's a lot of in all these movies. There's a lot of like evil stuff that happens, and I really like it for that. Like, there's things that happen that are just gross and evil, and that's one of them, right? Like coming out with a baby as a human shield. I'm like, that's
Yep.
fucked up.
Yeah, it is.
yeah,
And you don't see that. I'm like, that's really. I admire them for doing that. I admire them for just having these choices. That even though that shootout's pretty dumb, I'm like, oh, that's just a really evil
especially
idea that you've had.
because like everyone is like, abort the plan. And then one dude's just like, nope, too bad. Boom,
We're
boom, boom.
going.
And all goes out. And then she gets the blame for it. It's just this like, it's so, the politics of this like police organization is so frustrating in this film. But obviously that's the point of it as well. But it's just, yeah, it's
a really frustrating way to start this movie, I think. Like that feels like a trope in storytelling where it's like, oh, we don't want our good guy to be that flawed, so we're going to make someone else do the bad thing, but it's going to be pinned onto the good guy. And it just it feels like a weak way to start this movie.
like,
For sure.
what were they expecting her to do? She was being shot at with an Uzi. I don't know.
But I was like cringing at her hosing down the baby too. I'm just like, I can imagine cleaning my baby with that cold water, and she would be screaming her head off.
It's like she's washing dishes. She's just like hosing it down. It's like that's messed up. Like, yeah, that poor baby. He's gonna have a lot of traumatic core memories.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I feel like Ridley Scott, like I said, Griner, very famous director, made some of the best films ever. Like, incredibly important career. He's made a lot of duds too, so he's not.
He has. It's weird. Like he's not
up and down.
He's not. He's not the director that's made only good films. He's made a lot of shit too.
Yeah, and I think that's he makes like a film a year, sometimes 2 or 3. So I think that's kind of why he just likes to make movies. Period. But this is the kind of film that it feels like he should have brought an interesting flair to, but I just don't think he cared about. This is like his off film for the year, I guess.
Yeah,
because there doesn't seem to be anything here that's interesting. It doesn't seem to be like there doesn't seem to be any insight or idea. Or like with Silence, there's a clear understanding of there's I'm creating this sense of tension, this unease, the gaze, and what that means to be looked at and to look at evil. In this, it's like he's just a very direct recording of what is kind of like a weird half action film, half like I don't even really know how to describe the Italian stuff. It's really boring.
Yeah,
this
movie really like meanders and doesn't feel like it has much of a point. And I think that's what I disliked about it the most. Like, the other 2 films in this trilogy have like a very clear, here's the antagonist. There's also the antagonist in Hannibal, but he's kind of, you're intrigued by him, and sometimes you're even cheering for him. And then you've got the good guy. And this movie, I don't know, like the good guy even is kind of blurry in a lot of it. Like, but there's no antagonist. Like, what's his name, Vasher or whatever his name is. He doesn't feel
Mason
Verger. He doesn't really feel like a bad guy. He doesn't feel like much of a threat for most of the film.
No, because
because part of it, you're like, get your revenge, man. This dude messed you up. Like, first of all, what drugs did he do to be able to have Hannibal convince him to cut his own face off and feed the dogs happily?
It happens later again with Ray Liotta, right? He's just like he just starts feeding him his brain, and it's like, what are you giving him, man?
Oh man, yeah, we'll get into that soon. But yeah, the whole France subplot thing, it feels like this weird diversion where it's not like she's going to Paris to track him down and like he's joining up with this cop.
This is all in Italy. You're in the wrong country, man.
I know Europe's a small place.
I'm stupid. But like, it's not like she's going over there and helping this cop, and it's this thing that I thought it would be. It's just like she's calling with advice over the phone, and they're not listening to her. It's just like, I don't know. And then he just comes back anyway, and then we're now chasing him around here again. It's just, I don't know.
I feel like it does that frustrating thing. There's got to be a name for it. We talked about it with Pirates of the Caribbean. We talked about it with other films, I'm sure, where it makes a side character the main character almost, or at least a point of view character. And by having Lecter as kind of like we follow him around, we see what he's doing and everything, even though it's still told through the lens of the Italian policeman, it doesn't feel like it. It feels like we're just following Lecter himself, and it's really kind of like trying to get us on his side. And that's a weird thing to do, because I don't think we should ever be on his side. It's an unwise choice to be like, here, let's follow him and see things. It's like, no, what we should be doing is being charmed by him from the other side.
Yeah.
We should never be like hanging out and like, yeah, it's cool. It's cool to be a cannibal doctor. And it kind of wastes a lot of time doing that. Just like, here's him living life. It's like, we shouldn't. I don't want that. I want him as like the madman who people consult with. That's where these stories get their juice from. And I think that's probably why it meanders so much, because who cares about seeing him read Italian poetry?
I don't want to see him wander around Italy in a big hat. I don't care.
Man, that pickpocket was the least subtle pickpocket I've ever seen in my life.
No, rubbish.
He's like knocking stuff over, like hunting him down, like staring at him. I'm just like, oh man, this is not going to end well at all.
Nah.
I was like, I thought this is what you were good at. Like, he busted you doing this stuff because you were good at like swiping stuff on people. He's just hopeless.
That's why he got caught, isn't it? He should have known when he could catch him by the cop. He should have been like, no, he's going to die.
The cop just leaves him there to bleed out, go washes his hands.
How is Verger so rich? Did he just have that much money while he was not, confined to a bed, and now
I think there's more in the books. I think it is explained a bit, but it's like he's just one of those massive like dynasty families.
Yeah.
Old wealth. Because it's explained he has a sister in the books and in the TV show. And I think it explains a bit more about that politics, where it's like he's just from this very old money family, and so it's just he's the ultimate. And that's why like he's always been like a bit of a sadist himself.
Mm.
That's why he's so like we're meant to see him as kind of a villain in a way, because he was like Lecter, but he got caught by Lecter, and so now he's this mess. But
because that is a damn castle he lives in, like a huge castle, man. That's like royal family sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
He finally does what I've always hoped. This useless crime law just gets pushed over. When Lecter's like, you could just push him in and say, I did it. He just does it.
It's not a bad moment.
His butler, though, man, turns on him so quickly.
Yeah.
He's just like, you could kill him, He's just like, yeah. Pushes him. He's like, straight off. He's just like, yeah. I could commit murder, brutal murder, and have this guy be eaten by pigs.
I mean, at that point, you've been with him through all this crap. It's like, you're already dirty.
I'll do the same.
Yes.
But still, it's just funny because you never really see him be that nasty to that dude. It's not like he treats him like horrible or anything like that. It's just
he's actually always been really nice to him. Yeah.
He's like, oh, thank you. What could I do without you? Oh God, pushing him. He's like, I'm free. I'm free.
Now.
Why does she get something in the mail that's like the Guinness Book of Records for having the most kills as a woman in the FBI?
I know. I wrote that down too.
What
is Guinness giving out that award? There's just no way. Gee,
it's just such a, I don't know.
It's such a strange thing to put in this movie. Like it feels really weird.
Yeah.
She's like, oh great, look, I'm in the Guinness Book of Records for killing the most people as a woman.
I think it's true. It's just, it reeks of that lazy, like, remember she's a woman, and we explored that in Silence. She's she's an outcast, and it's just really shoehorned in. And like, they play with that again. Like Ray Liotta's whole character is kind of to just be creepy in this, right? Like he's leering at her, he's making passes at her.
Yeah,
it's inferred that he's kind of holding her back in some way because she resisted his passes and stuff. Like his whole role is to just remind us that she suffers for being a woman in a man's world.
Yeah.
But it's just so so lazy and like
ham-fisted.
ham-fisted. There's just no subtlety or nuance to it.
Yep.
That as a result, you get scenes like that. Where it's like you're in the Guinness Book of Records for being a woman, apparently. Whatever.
I do like the scene with Hannibal where he's putting on the gloves, and I'm like, oh, he's totally going to kill this guy. And he just goes to pick up the suitcases because he knows about the fingerprints, and he's just like, oh, these are as heavy as bodies. Just like, good one, Hannibal.
He's still got his great dialogue, and like, even though this movie is very ordinary, Hopkins is still, top of his game. Made a lot of money in making this film, so kudos to him.
So
And like,
okay,
he's Yes.
can we? So okay, I feel like Hannibal as a character gets a bit camp in this film.
Blame some evidence.
I don't think he's too bad. I think he's fine.
I don't know. I just feel like he's now, like, his thing, still great and everything. I feel like just watching Silence of the Lambs is this creepy character he's portrayed, and I feel like now it's him being like, I'm playing this character again, so now I'm going to be extra Hannibal. Like, I don't know. I just feel like there's a few. I can't give specifics. Just with him talking, I feel like it's different than the first film. I feel like it's much more. Things are a bit more exaggerated and just a bit more. Oh, I'm an eccentric killer. I don't know. Could just be me.
I mean, I feel like I never noticed that. I never had that feeling. I mean, he's in the real world as well, so he's trying to be a bit more like a normal person.
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
So it's like but he can't deny who he is either. So that's just how I took it as, like, he's a lot more. What comes off as just kind of like a bit weird is like, well, he's just trying to be normal, or he's trying to blend in rather than commenting on how, you used to listen to the screams of lambs getting slaughtered when you were a child, didn't you? It's like, you can't you can't use that as an icebreaker at a party. People look at you funny.
True.
So instead, he just wears that big hat and makes a couple of quips
and buys perfume from a hand cream from only a place that only three stores.
The only place in the world that sells a hand cream. It's an exclusive.
How did you guys feel about the dinner scene? It's essentially the end of the movie. He feeds Ray Liotta his own brain.
0 to 100. Holy crap!
Yeah,
that scene was nuts.
Yeah, I think that was the only the saving scene in this movie is the only thing I really enjoyed in it. I think.
Yeah, it is funny. I had eaten a lot of lasagna for dinner before watching that movie, and it's the only time I've actually felt a little bit sick watching something. I was just like, because I still felt a bit sick from all the dinner, and I was like, oh no, and I had to just pause it for a minute and be like, what's happening right now? It seems nuts.
Yeah,
really disturbing.
It's so disturbing. Like, him cutting a bit off it, put it in the frying pan next to him, and then feeding it to him. And like, really good. And just this blood like dripping down his head, and like you can just tell like he's losing the color in his skin. Like, he's just looking sick. It's messed up. I do like his little quips, Hannibal's, where he's just like I said, if you can't keep up with the conversation, don't join at all. Like, shut up. I'm talking to Clarice here. Stop it.
And then we get the best scene at the very end where the kid asks for something.
Oh my god,
it's
man.
important to try new things.
Like Mother always said. And then it like goes all dark and zooms in on just one of his eyes, and like the credits start rolling. I'm just like, oh man.
So why did he cut his own arm off and not Clarice's?
Because he likes it.
Because it's. I don't want to. Again, the show kind of delves into this a bit as well.
Oh, does it? I mean, I get the sense that he sees her as just doing her job, I suppose.
I think there's just this weird sort of, there's that unspoken bond for some reason, and like he sees her as. I don't think they ever go too deep into it. I haven't read the book, so I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But there's just that sense, like, at the end of Silence, he says, "The world's more interesting with you in it." So there's just this weird sort of obsession where he's like, I will never kill you because I'm just interested in you.
Yeah. And
that's kind of the vibe. What's that?
How do you feel about the kiss?
Yeah, that was strange.
Yeah.
That was really weird. So I guess that same thing is this it's meant to be this weird, like, paternal, but also romantic, but also just obsessive. And I mean, you can't find a reason in a cannibal's behavior. So I kind of like. I think it's nice that it's like he's not going to do that to her because she's so important to him for some bizarre reason. But
how does he keep escaping? Like
He's
the
just
cops
that
are coming
amazing.
out. He cuts his hand off, gets across this river, and then he's just on a plane, just like da da da. Like I'm traveling abroad again. Like it's like
Yeah.
I don't know. There was
He's got
helicopters and everything flying around, man. There
Yeah,
was
he's got the
heaps
resources
of
to get on a plane, cook his own meal. Like,
yeah.
it's not like he's just stumbled on there just in time or anything like that. Like, he was planned and ready to go.
Yeah. And even in Italy, like he hangs a man from the balcony, he
Yeah.
waves at
And then gets
he waves
out
at a camera and just walks out and no one
on
catches
live
him.
TV. What did you guys think of that?
It's pretty
brutal,
dumb. I think pretty much everything
but
in
it's
Italy was stupid.
it is.
Yeah.
It's just like it's like I don't know. Everyone can see you there. There's a camera filming you. And like I do like Mason Verger being like, is he waving hello or bye or hello? But
But
yeah,
it's
it's
nice
just
having those moments where it's like his intestines just fall out. You're like, oh,
Mm.
this is
it's
like there's
brutal.
a handful of gory moments in it that are again like
Yeah.
you kind of forget about and they happen and they're
The
shocking.
pigs.
Yeah,
The
pigs are
pigs
great.
just
I love
eating
pigs.
people, man. Like, oh, them
Can't trust pigs, man.
them. No, I don't. Them bringing him in here with like just his feet bare. It's just like this creepy imagery, and it's just like, oh god, this is gonna be messed up. But
It's how they put like the people screaming, the recording of screaming to like
to ramp him up, with like,
Yeah.
yeah, boys,
I'm like
dinner time.
that's really disturbing, right? I love
It
it.
is, and then like eating out of like the dole on the car at near the start of the film. Like it's just like you can tell there's like meat inside the holes of the dole. Oh, it's just all messed up, man.
It's
It's
weird.
just all gross.
It's creepy.
And Mason Verge is just like, how's the pigs? It's like disturbing.
Oh, I love Mason Verges so much.
So creepy, man.
What
So
a
creepy.
What a character.
All right, so should we move on to the final movie, Red Dragon? I meant to get a summary up for this and I didn't. Hold on.
Brett Ratner takes to the screen.
Brett Ratner. For some reason, the man we have done the most movies of. Once again, we'll put out the disclaimer that he seems like a massive scumbag and we do not support anything he does.
And
But
he just remade a Michael Mann film.
But he does make a lot of trilogies for some reason.
And
Franchise film.
somehow made a film better than a Ridley Scott one in this trilogy. So there you go.
It's true.
It's pretty gnarly.
A retired FBI agent with psychological gifts is assigned to help track down the Tooth Fairy. A mysterious killer aiding him is imprisoned forensic psychiatrist Dr. Hannibal the Cannibal Lecter.
I enjoyed this.
I really liked this movie. It's not on.
Really
It's not
fun.
Silence of the Lambs, but it's. I like Edward Norton, and we
Edward
don't see
Norton.
much of him anymore.
We don't, hey.
Apparently he's kind of a nightmare to work with. He wants to rewrite everything, but
See,
he's an auteur.
He brings back what Jodie Foster did with the first film to have this like strong lead character that's not Hannibal as well. Like this secondary one, I feel like number 2 didn't accomplish that. And to have him there, I really like the intro with him and Hannibal. Like when he's sort of talking to him, and he's like, "Oh no, this guy eats them," and he's like putting it together and like their confrontation, him getting stabbed, and it's like, "Oh god, this is brutal." Like
yeah.
it's a really cool intro. Yeah.
It is good. It's funny how similar this is to Silence. Like
It is very, very similar.
it's almost the same narrative, which is okay. Like I don't hate that for this thing where again it's that just having Lecter as the constant recurring voice of it, like insight, and so you just sort of got a new character coming, so there's a new killer. Like that functions well. But at the same time I do feel a lot like Brett Ratner doesn't deserve the praise here. He kind of just copied 2 films that already exist. I was like, let's just make them again somewhat worse. Like this can't hold a candle to Silence. But you're right, because of this, the nature of that narrative, I think it works really well. It's just there's a good propulsion. Just having their dynamic is always really fascinating. And Francis Dolarhyde is a really interesting villain, like a nice like equally psychopathic, but a lot more contained than Buffalo Bill. And so it's different to see. And I love all the weird like body shit, like he's twisting with the tattoos and he's eating the painting and stuff. It's really
eating
interesting.
the painting. How do you eat canvas? Like I don't know. There's something weird about him eating the painting, but
Very weird.
sorry, just to go back to the beginning, I really enjoy the opening dinner too. He's like, "Oh, what happened to that guy who can't play the flute for shit?" And they're like, "What is this meat? Oh, you wouldn't eat it if I told you." It's I don't know. There's something real. I that's a much better Hannibal in public than Hannibal in a big hat tours Italy.
Yes. It's like, oh, this guy's a bad music player. I'm gonna cook him and feed him to the rest of the orchestra. Oh, it's great. It's great.
It tells you everything about his character as well, though. It's like he just believes in the finer things.
Yeah.
And he has a standard that if you don't live up to, he kills you. And he's also just like, I want to mess with people and feed them food, like feed them flesh.
Is that ponytail a finer thing though?
When I saw that, I vomited my brains back up. It's like, what? Never wear that again.
Before we get into most of the movie, so like, do you feel like because it's so similar to the first one, it kind of does this weird thing since it leads so directly, like literally it ends with like, oh, she's down the hall. It's he's just finished this escapade and he's just like, okay, here's another one of the exact same scenario. But like the way they talked him up in the first one, it's like he barely talks. He doesn't talk to anyone. He doesn't talk to our cops or anything. Ignore this whole thing where he just spoke to Will Graham for like the last 3 months and we let him out and he did this thing and did this thing. Like it changes the narrative of that and makes it feel a bit mismatched. But
it undermines silence a little bit. It also feels weird that they then, like in silence, let him out and let him talk to the senator. It's like, no, this dude has just done terrible things again. Like, stop. We can't let him out. He's like, it's not like he's been locked away for 30 years and it's like, oh, maybe he'll be okay now. Maybe we can let him come out and ask her about breastfeeding her children. Like, no, this dude's just finished doing bad things. Don't let him out.
He just sent a cop's address to this guy who went to murder this dude's family.
That was messed up.
I think they like that's a rewrite. I think it's really like a cute nod to be like, hey, remember silence, guys? This is where it's really stupid. I don't think that's how the chronology is meant to go. It's meant to this case is meant to happen a long time, I think, before silence. But but it's really stupid. That happened. I was like, oh, I'm out. I'm checking out.
But that's the thing with the crime scenes and everything, the mirrors in the eyes and everything, and the kids. It's really creepy, and it feels really like, oh god, this dude's messed up. And
what do they call him? Do they call him a squirter? They call him something because he leaves behind bodily an excreta. It's like, oh, it's so it's very creepy.
The fact that they keep calling him the Tooth Fairy as well, and it just angers him. Like he's just like, I'm a dragon. Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah, Freddie Lounds.
Awesome to see him. Like,
so good to see him again. Yeah.
Meets an unfortunate end, obviously, but
best scene of the movie. The flaming wheelchair.
It was a very good scene. I did very much enjoy it. Yes.
So good.
Just because Valchek's there. Just reacted. Just random dude just reacted like, oh.
a little bit. It's a great cast, it's a great choice. But it's just such a weird scene. Who expects to see a wheelchair with a body on fire? No one. That's who.
The dragon burnt him, man. Dragon burnt him.
It's pretty dope. Did you guys Did you like? Sorry, I forgot my train of thought.
Ralph Fiennes' dong. Yes. We got to see Voldemort's penis. What more do we need in life?
We finally get to see more male nudity.
Ralph Fiennes, I really enjoyed him in this movie. Like you say, like his contortion around his, his uncomfortableness in his body. There's something.
You believe he believes he's a dragon. Yeah. He's in a man's body. He's like, unsettling. And the girl's great too, and you're always worried about her.
Yeah, the blind girl.
Yeah, she's really. It does bring a lot. What did you guys think of Edward Norton's kind of almost supernatural ability? Like they kind of hint at it, right? It's like you're the only one who's got this talent. You can empathize with people so much that you can see what happened. And it's not in the show they do it a lot more, but in the he's like that's why they need him because you can just understand people so much more than anyone else. And it's this weird kind of he is the only it's not quite supernatural, but it's he's got this power almost that lets him be the best damn detective in the world.
It'd be detective vision in a video game. He'd be
exactly right. That's how it would translate. He could see clues everywhere because they highlight yellow.
Yeah.
I think it's a nice contrast because, like, Hannibal's always the smartest guy in the room, right? Like, he's always the guy. He knows everything. He only has to read those reports, and he knows exactly who's done it. You know, every facet of their personality. It's kind of nice to have. And I mean, Clarice is not that different either. Like, she's very capable despite being kind of naive. But yeah, I just feel I always just got the impression that he's an incredibly capable detective. And he's not like smart like Hannibal, but he's got that, you know, that detective nous that works well.
I think I like and it happens with Lecter. Like it teeters on the border of fantasy almost, where it's like, how can someone be this good at killing and eating people? And the same way, it's like, how can this detective be this good at knowing what people are thinking? But I don't know, in the universe, I guess it all kind of works well, where it's slightly heightened. But yeah, Edward Norton, really great actor. Like, it's always really good to see him.
I feel like I haven't seen him in ages. Like, I kind of miss. I don't know. I love Fight Club. Fight Club's like one of my favorite movies ever, and
that's right.
To not have much Edward Norton in my life anymore feels bad.
Yeah, he's very much like I think he considers himself a real, like say, an auteur. And so he's really only done a handful of stuff. He's just, I don't know. He picks his projects, and all the projects he's picked have been pretty crap. So I don't know.
Recently, yeah.
I do like the going back to Philip Seymour Hoffman, like them using him to write all this stuff to trigger the dragon. Just like, oh yeah, incestuous. He does this and had this happen to him, and Philip Seymour Hoffman's just like, oh, that's some good shit. Just writing it all down. He's just like, yeah, no, this guy is definitely going to come out to kill someone. He's going to send him over the edge. He glues him to the board, like the chair. Philip Seymour Hoffman. He's like all his skin's glued to it. It's just like, oh, that's uncomfortable.
It's messed up.
But
he's so greasy, and like he really just plays that sleazebag well. Like he's unshaven. His clothes are a mess. It's like you can tell he's just this hack journalist.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. Did you guys expect the crime scenes to be a bit more like confronting? I feel like this was the safest of the movies, right? I don't remember.
Yeah, in some ways.
There was no face eating scenes. There was no crazy gore.
Like we see him eat Philip Seymour Hoffman's face, but you don't see it. It's just like inverted. No, it's very much like, oh, you could go watch this at the cinema, and that's just like a normal,
crime thriller.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like even the crime scenes, like the idea of the mirrors in the eyes is really creepy. But we don't. Does he actually ever tour the scene with them there though? Like he's only looking at photos, right? Like it doesn't feel.
No, you never see. You never actually see what that looks like, and you never see. Yeah, you only ever see like it shows some blood on the walls.
Yeah,
but that's it. You never see anything more.
Yeah, he's kind of looking at cold cases, I suppose, and it's not doesn't have the same effect.
Yeah. And I don't know if I didn't look into it if there's a rating thing or not, but I was always waiting for like the brain eating scene or something. I was waiting for something big to happen.
And there is a point. Yeah, it really lacked that. You're right.
Yeah,
but it's probably why this one feels like I said at the start, like this one's like a fun film. Like it kind of didn't feel as like heavy or like this like disgusting sick film to watch. Like didn't have no Mason Verger, didn't have no pigs eating people or lobotomies and stuff like that. So it felt more like, oh, this is a fun buddy cop sort of like detective thriller sort of thing.
It definitely feels more like just a crime film, right? Like a very standard sort of detective story, which isn't a bad thing, but I don't know. I think I associate it with like the horror elements, and it doesn't have as much of that.
No, you're right.
I know. Speaking of the awkward political realm of the first film, what did you guys think of this? Because it sort of deals again with a similar thing here, right? Where he's got the reconstructed lip, and they talk about in one scene. It's like he considers himself a freak because he's had to have this, and they talk a little bit about that, where it's like he's this. They don't call him this hideous monster, but like it's his character is meant to be this guy who sees himself as hideous because he's deformed.
And I mean, that's not his nan, who was a piece of shit. But yeah, like I don't know. It's weird because obviously, like, I don't know, he believes he's a dragon in a man's body. Like
He's becoming the dragon. He isn't the dragon
becoming a
yet.
dragon. Yeah. He's
That
just
tattoo is kind of sick.
It
It is pretty
is.
cool. It is pretty cool.
Good. Don't get ideas. They start whipping your dong. They start whipping your dong out and
I might
running around.
No, but that's the thing. The whole thing with the home videos as well, but is creepy, and he's like getting it on with the blind girl or just watching Will Graham's home movies.
It's very voyeuristic, very creepy.
Yeah, very creepy. I sort of caught on earlier. I was just like, why do all these people have these home movies of like surely there's some
cracked the case, Luke.
I know.
Just see how cheesy they are. Like the adventures with whoever they are. It's like starring mom.
Yeah.
Oh god. People made this?
Yeah. But they got me again. Same as like with the face in the first one. Like they fooled me. I thought he killed himself in the fire. I was like, oh shit, he just shot himself.
I was like, oh man, that was so anticlimactic. There's got to be.
I had that thought too. I was like, oh wow, that's really how they ended the Red Dragon. I was like, that's not really threatening at all. And then there's the whole hospital scene. I'm just like, oh no, it was Ralph's body all along. Poor Ralph. He's trying to get laid. He got shot in the head. But
the whole showdown at his house is kind of the hostage situation with the kid.
I like the hostage situation with the kid. Like that was.
But him like insulting his son. Oh man, that's horrible, man. Like it's so brutal. And like you'd think like the first thing you're saying to the kid when you're running away from the dude, like, sorry, I didn't mean that. Oh god, I'm so sorry. But that kid's that's a cool memory for that kid.
He's never forgiven.
I just kept thinking, like, what if Edward Norton dies here? Like, and that's the last thing he said to his son.
I know.
Like, that's rough. That's real rough.
But I do like it.
I'd love to see that as like an explored story, right? Because they talk about that in both of them, where they're like, these people weren't born criminal or weren't born murderers. They were made this way by years of trauma.
Yeah.
And it would have been an interesting idea to just have that, like, that trauma scars his son, and what does that do to him?
His son's name's Miggs.
Oh my god! Damn it!
No, I don't know. I wouldn't have hated the ending if Edward Norton died. Like, it's a sadder ending, but I think I don't know. Do you think he should have lived?
He gets shot like 5 times in the chest,
and he's already been stabbed real nastily.
I like that, like that he still sits there, keeps shooting because he's like trying to save his family. He keeps getting shot and just shooting blindly. And then she puts the final bullet in him. But yeah, maybe it would have been a better thing because it just ends up like, oh, happy ending, and it's like kind of like, why does he never get mentioned again then? Like you'd think someone would have brought it up to Clarice or something.
She's like, oh, maybe you should go see him, and he's dealt with Lecter before.
He knows about Hannibal a lot.
Get some advice.
He's on a boat somewhere. He cannot be tracked down.
That's what I mean though. Like the ending feels really. It kind of goes just to a very classic, like typical Hollywood ending. There's the showdown, the villain and the hostage, and then he kills him and he's fine.
The ending we should have got was him dead and it cutting years later to his son being like getting all weird. Makes it big. I don't know. Like
he's Vace and Verger or something, and he actually eats Red Dragon. Like that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, that's messed up. But yeah, it's. I enjoy this film. Like I had fun watching the film, and I was like, oh, that was good. And like you said, Edward Norton, he's always mostly tops.
Sometimes. You like his bleached tips?
I do. I dig it. Very 2000s, early 2000s. Yeah. I could, but he can. He can.
Yeah, Harvey Keitel's really good as Jack in this.
He is. He is good.
I think I really like Scott Glenn in the first one, in Silence. I think he's just got the best. He's got the perfect voice for it. I can't even remember who plays him in the second one, in Hannibal. But then Harvey Keitel comes in. Like Harvey Keitel's really good. He can, because there's a lot of Jack Crawford in this one, so you need someone who can really, I think, hold his own and
hey,
probably he can do that the most.
Do you know who Jack Crawford is in the Hannibal show?
I do not.
Lawrence Fishburne.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a great
casting.
I must watch that show.
Yeah, I want to go back and watch it. So
we'll do a podcast about the show too.
The official Hannibal TV show podcast.
There's long-standing rumors that they're going to bring it back for a 4th season.
Yeah. But, you know, I'm glad I watched these films. Like these were like a blotch on my record of movie watching and all that I've never seen any of these films, but I'm glad I have now.
Yep.
And
Yep. No, I
like
agree.
otherwise, all I would have had on is the Joe Dirt references and Cable Guy. I've been quoting Silence of the Lambs so much of my life. Like I always say like, "Oh, hello, Clarice. It's good to see you again." But I've never watched
Who
the
do you
film.
say that to?
Yeah.
People randomly.
You have
When I have
Clarices in your
chicken
life?
on my
Clarice,
face.
Clarice.
Whenever I put chicken on my face, I'm just like, yeah. Cable
If I
Guy.
ever met someone named Clarice, that's all I would do.
100%.
Hello, Clarice. Like that's like Silence is so influential. Like all these movies parody it. Like yeah, Simpsons are parodying it. Just, every time that song "Goodbye Horses" plays, it's usually parodying this movie somehow. Like it's just
There's that great scene in The Office where Dwight cuts off the face off the resuscitation mannequin and wears it.
Best episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, Joe Dirt with Buffalo Bob.
That was my first exposure to it as well.
Yep. It's basically like a 1-for-1 recreation, and he's just like
pretty much.
I cannot remember anything about Joe Dirt, I must admit.
He lowers him. He's like Joe Dirt's there, and he's just like, Do you have what I asked for? And he's like, "Oh, here, have it." It's just like a copy of Auto Trader, like a car magazine. He's like, "Yeah." It's a car magazine in the bottom of the hole.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Real dumb.
Yeah, it is.
All right, so I think pretty clear order. Silence of the Lambs, the best film. Red Dragon, and then Hannibal. We can all agree.
Makes me shudder to think that Brett Ratner made a better film, but yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully this is the last Brett Ratner movie we have to do.
I don't know what else we could do.
I don't think he's involved in any other trilogies as far as I can
think. Look at his filmography.
I don't think he has anything else coming up anytime soon. So
yeah, that's right. He's not going to make any new trilogies. While Conan looks that up, did you know that Christopher Reeves was supposed to play the guy in the wheelchair in the second movie? You guys know his name. I don't know his name.
Mason Verger.
Yeah, Mason Verger.
Oh, that would have been perfect.
Would have been interesting, but then he found
Reeves
out
was in the wheelchair.
Yeah, then he found out he was a disfigured child molester, and he's like, "Nah, I don't want any part of that."
Yeah, fair enough.
Wait,
I can understand it to an extent.
I don't know. Gary Oldman has no.
Gary Oldman was like, "Sign me up for that shit."
As long as you cover up my face, so I'm unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Like, can we just say again? Like, he's so scary. Mason Verger, like the prosthetics on his face, and just like his eyes look all like the
creepy.
tongue, and like
his right eye's dead.
When she's like up close to him, and then the light turns on, and like,
what's that light for?
It's just for dramatic reveals. I had that thought too.
Look at me.
It's just to scare Caldwell every time. But
that's why Caldwell killed him, because he keeps doing that. He keeps staring.
Like,
turn the light on.
Turn the light
on. I do like the line. We're going back to Hannibal for a second, but I do like the line that he says where he's like, "Oh, you didn't shy away from my face, but you shied at the name of God," or something like that. That's a cool line.
That's a good line. That's a real good line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know. I think
no more Brett Ratner.
No, there's nothing. He's done no other friend. I mean, he made Hercules, so we could try to tie that into something if we want to. But I sometimes think of Silence, like the influence of Silence is so not perverse. It's so extensive. Like we talked about it when we did the Batman, how that scene where he goes to see the Riddler and the cut scene where he goes to see Joker are both just like that. This is the Hannibal Lecter thing. He's going to see the psychopath, and that in itself is almost a trope now, right? You go and see the only person who's worse than who you're trying to catch.
Yeah,
to help get in the mind of a madman. Like that's brilliant, and that'll last forever, I think. So
yeah, or even like the well-spoken serial killer, like that wasn't a thing before Hannibal, right? Like that was invented by Hannibal.
No, you're right. Yeah, they were all just like mindless murderers.
But that's almost what they are. Like that's almost what you expect out of it. Like you expect the charismatic bad guy now, almost. Like yeah. It's interesting how it's changed things.
Is So obviously there's been more Hannibal stuff. Like there was another Hannibal movie.
Yeah, it's Hannibal Rising.
Hannibal Rising.
Which is also based off a book. There was a fourth book, I realised.
Yeah, so I looked at the books today, and he wrote the first two, like the first one in the 70s, second one in the 80s, and then he didn't write the third one, which is what Hannibal is based on.
Hannibal, yeah.
Until like 1996 or something. So he wrote it way later.
Okay.
It's only a few years before the movie.
Yeah, I wonder if there was, people are into this series now. Let's write another book.
I didn't realize, but I think Silence of the Lambs, the book, was actually like a really big deal.
It was, yeah.
So I guess he probably that happened. And he's like, well, I might as well, because Hannibal Rising is like a prequel following him as like a post World War II survivor, and seems really like a different direction, right? Like it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem anything like the other content.
No,
it's
not
like
at
the
all.
birth of a madman. So that sounds like a cash grab to me.
Could I was just gonna ask, could we get a Hannibal movie now with Anthony Hopkins as old Hannibal?
He's so old though.
Yeah, I don't think
He's
so.
still great in Westworld. He was great in Westworld.
He was old though.
He is old.
I almost feel like he can't quite deliver his lines in the same way because he's so old.
Yeah,
and I don't mean that as a slight. I literally mean in that he talks a lot slower, and so because
who do you cast as the new Hannibal? Mads is unavailable.
What?
Oh no!
Are we getting young Hannibal or old Hannibal?
Hannibal in Silence of the Lambs.
So we're remaking Silence.
Silence of the Lambs, similar age Hannibal.
I'm trying to think who's my favorite actor who's getting old now.
Tom Cruise.
Oh my god, that would be nuts.
He has the intensity.
He does have the intensity. You're right,
dude. I'm sold. I'm sold on it.
There'd be a lot more of like he's running after them. There'd have to be scenes of that. He's like a free range prisoner. He's just kept on an oval. Somewhere.
No, it'd be that thing he walks, that circle he walks around in Red Dragon, but it'd be just Tom Cruise running full pelt around and around
all time
till the change breaks. Syria, Viggo Mortensen.
He's got the kind of.
He's creepy in some films, and like,
he does have the creepiness actually.
He's intense. He's suave. He can be very charming. He's got the grey slicked hair, back hair.
I think what I would want to see though is I'd want to see someone who had been like Viggo's dealt with that. Like he's played creepy sickos before. I would want to see an actor who's mostly like a good guy, and I want to see him come in and like blow us all away with that.
Chris Pratt.
We both
went for a
Chris. Like Robert Downey Jr. or something, right?
Yeah.
Even though he come see him come in and like we didn't expect him to do. I would want to see that from.
Too bad, guys. It's Benedict Cumberbatch or Keanu Reeves.
Keanu.
Oh, he couldn't do it, man. No, Keanu can't do it. He doesn't have the chops.
He brings a different charisma.
It'd be an interesting Hannibal, that's for sure.
It'd be a very interesting Hannibal.
Will Ferrell. Not comedy Will Ferrell, like serious Will Ferrell.
Drama Will Ferrell. So someone like that, like Will Ferrell or Jim Carrey, like these big comedy actors.
Jim Carrey could do it.
Seeing them come in to do it would be great.
John C. Reilly? I reckon he could do it.
Yeah, he's got serious chops.
He does.
Nicolas Cage.
No, I don't think so. I love Nick Cage, but I love Nick Cage. I don't think you can do Hannibal.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for the podcast. Next week, we're finally doing the new Thor movie. What is it called?
Yes.
Thor: Love and Thunder.
Actually, that's who should be in it. Christian Bale. I mean, it's American Psycho all over again, but
yeah,
could do it well.
He could bring that good energy. Actually, that's American Psycho energy. You're right.
Yeah. Anyway, Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah, join us for Thor: Love and Thunder. This podcast was brought to you by The Taste of Iron, a book by our very own C.V. Clarke. It's very
Hannibal
good.
Lecter here.
Yes.
Give it a read. If you enjoyed listening to us talk about movies, you'll like hearing us talk about games. We have a podcast called Bonus XP. You can find it at Bonus XP on all of your favourite podcast apps. We are at Good Bad Worst. And thank you for joining us.